And we're live.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another great Thursday. Business Inside the Game in partnership with the NBPA, bringing you a series of town halls. Today's town hall, the theme is dismantling inequality and the push for prison reform. Um, I have two incredible young activists, smart, on top of the movement, inside of the movement, pushing the movement. I think for us and Big is really, the reason why we partnered with the NBPA was really to, build and amplify a voice from prison reform to voting, right? And really working our way through, and doing a deep dive into these topics and not just making them just overlying themes, but to allow our panelists, right, to really give perspective on what we're talking about. And so I'd like to welcome today Chloe Cheyenne, the founder of Community X, social impact tech entrepreneur. She was recognized for her company to be a Forbes 30 Under 30 as the #1 startup of the year. Hello. She was also named one of Startup Grind top 100 global startups. Chloe, welcome to Business Inside the Game.
Thank you for having me, Baron and Big, NBPA.
And last but not least, for sure, my young brother, somebody I'm taking my cue from, Sterling Brown from the Milwaukee Bucks. Sterling has, been a young player who showed heart, determination, a will to, get better and also be an incredible teammate. Um, the author of Your Money Can't Silence Me, an incredible article in the Players Tribune, but also, Sterling has been in the forefront, right, of police reform, a victim of police brutality himself. While in the NBA, Sterling has been championing this cause and really just pushing the lines as far as our NBA community and our NBA brothers understanding what that means and what that feels like. So, Sterling, welcome to Business Inside the Game.
Yes, sir. I appreciate y'all for having me.
So I'm gonna let you start, Chloe. Just give us a little bit about, you, Community X, and your story.
Sure. So I'm originally from Chicago. I graduated from Howard School of Business in 2013. And when I graduated, I had a full-time offer to join Google. So I did. I moved from the East Coast to the West Coast out to Mountain View in the Bay Area. Worked for them for a few years and ultimately resigned from my position there after the founders, Larry and Sergey, refused to do anything about Mike Brown Jr.'s murder in Ferguson. And the reason why that them not doing anything was so important to me is because I'm multiracial, but my dad is Black and he's a survivor of an extreme case of police misconduct that happened on the south side of Chicago that left him permanently handicapped with a bullet still lodged in his spine to this day. Similar to the way Breonna Taylor was murdered, Chicago police raided my grandmother's townhome in a no-knock raid, confronted my dad, opened fire on him over a dozen times, and as he was bleeding to death in the hallway of his mom's home, the officers realized that they had the wrong address and it was a case of mistaken identity. In an effort to cover up the mistake they realized they made, they planted drugs in his bedroom dresser, physically assaulted him after shooting him, threatened to murder him, and then didn't call an ambulance in hopes that he would just die. So by the time he made it to the hospital, doctors told my family he wouldn't make it through the night. He was stabilized, but then in between operations, similar to how we saw what happened with Jacob Blake, he was actually handcuffed to his hospital bed in between surgeries, which meant that by the time he left the hospital, not only did he have to begin a lifetime of physical rehab, where he had to learn how to walk again, regain all of his motor skills, eat on his own, but he also was fighting for his innocence in court against the city of Chicago until I was 10 years old. And so that's really my story, and my motivation for what I do is my dad and what he experienced.
Amazing, amazing story. Tell us more about Community X.
So Community X is a coalition building platform and activist toolkit. And basically what we do is we leverage AI powered algorithms to be able to understand who you are, where you are, and what specific issues matter to you, whether it's police reform, prison reform, voter engagement. And then we take that data and say, based on the things that you care about, here are other people in your local community, in your country, and around the world that you can instantly unite with and build very mobilely native, easily scalable coalitions that are ready to mobilize around calls to action. It's a mobile app that's available for download now on iOS and Android.
Amazing. Thank you, Chloe. Sterling, give
Yes,
us, give us the 1-2. Give us a bit of your background for the people out there that are getting to know you.
Yeah, born and raised and grew up in Maywood, Illinois. 5-10 minutes right outside the heart of the city of Chicago. Came up, watching my brother play. That's how I fell in love with the game of basketball. So, I went from, Proviso East High School, which, got a rich history with Doc, Michael Finley, everybody. Went to SMU, in Dallas, Texas, and played under Larry Brown, and with some guys in the league now, Shake Milton and everybody, Shimi Ojale, and then got drafted to the Bucks. Just been working, man, been grinding, trying to get my time, trying to find my slot in there, and that's really my story as far as basketball. That's my rise to where I'm at now, and then my rookie year, the incident happened with the police. And, since then, it's just been, me trying to educate myself and, educate the community, on how to move in certain situations, dealing with the police. And, I didn't started, a foundation. I planned on starting it before, the incident happened. But when it happened, it was actually, a good time to, launch it and everything. So I got that going. It's based in Chicago, the Salute Foundation. That stands for sacrifice, ambition, loyalty, unremitting truth, and education. And, we just, out in the community, trying to give life back, to the people and give hope back, at the same time as, letting people know that, you are something, like letting the kids pretty much know, you can do something, like, don't, let nobody tell what they can't, like, you can't do because of what they didn't do. Always keep that, that drive, that hunger, that ambition, but at the same time educate yourself, because you gotta know what you're going into to know how to deal with it. And it's going good. We done had a lot of events, partnered with a lot of good organizations, and we got a lot coming in the future.
That's exciting. This feel like a all Chicago conversation, right?
Yeah, man, we got time.
Yeah. Well, in that case, let's drill down into Chicago, right? Let's talk about, the push for prison reform, right? But let's also talk about, we know a lot of our young brothers in Chicago are being locked up. We know that there's a lot of violence in Chicago, right? Why is this election important, right? And, what are you both doing, or what have you learned, that could ultimately be, a cry to, the people out there in Chicago looking for, partners and solutions?
Chloe, go first.
Shirley, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So I think the most important thing for people to know in this election, especially young people and first-time voters, is that this election is about much, much more than who becomes the next president of the United States. We all saw the debates the other night, and many of us left feeling, hopeless, and things were said by Trump. He refused to condemn the Proud Boys, who are essentially the modern day KKK, which was horrific. But not unexpected. But we also saw from, former Vice President Joe Biden that he couldn't explicitly say Black Lives Matter. And he also, believes and purported his belief that we should continue to further fund the police. And so I think what people really have to understand is like, yes, Joe Biden is important for, democracy continuing to see another day over the next 4 years. But also there are other candidates who are going to be on this ballot who could actually play a much bigger role in our day-to-day lives. If you look at Breonna Taylor's case, in isolation, I know this isn't, Chicago, we're talking about Kentucky now, but Breonna Taylor's case was not taken seriously because the DA didn't even present the proper options to the grand jury. How did the DA in Kentucky get into office? From voters in Kentucky. And so it's really important for people to understand, you have to look at, the DA is on the ballot, you have to look at the mayors, the senators, the House of Representatives, and really understand how you can craft a ballot that reflects your values and reflects the things that you want to see out of your community.
Absolutely. Sterling, add to that, please.
Yeah, no, she just really hit it on the head. We got to educate ourselves first and foremost, know what we going in to do, know who we voting for, know policies, know who these guys are, know who running on a campaign. But at the same time, locally, that's what's going to affect us the most in the community. So we got to know who running, locally, in our neighborhoods and our, towns and everything. We got to know what they about, what they doing and what they plan on doing for us. Cause, the Black agenda, that's what we got to, prioritize, I don't want to get, into politics and, choose sides and everything, but that's not, their main priority. So we got to make that our main priority and figure out how we can put people in position, to help benefit us with the things that we need. And, let's just go back to, educating ourselves on key topics and really just staying involved in the community. We got to do it. Like, we got to get out here, we got to touch the kids. We got to get them something to do. We got to get them, programs, we got to give the kids and the adults, financial literacy outlets, to learn how to, write a check or, manage a bank account. We gotta be more involved in the community and not so much, in my eyes, look for a politician or, elected official to make the changes for us.
Absolutely. And then, just drilling down into the community and talking about, a lot of our, brothers and sisters, are locked up, right? And don't kind of have like the opportunity, to your point, Chloe, to be represented in the right capacity. And so can you guys speak to just your fight and your push for, taking apart the system, right? How do we dismantle this system, right? And then how do we push for, the court system, right, after the voting, to be allowed to have, what people are calling prison reform, but what we would say, their rightful opportunity or their right, their right as a citizen. Go ahead, anyone.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I can start. I think, in order to understand what we need to do to dismantle the current system, we need to understand how it was created. And if you go back to Emancipation Proclamation days, and then, our people migrating throughout the country into different communities, and then the government having to step back and say, okay, now all these people are free, what do we do with them? Well, we put them in ghettos, we redline cities, we create food deserts, we create lack of access to proper healthcare and education. So that's how our cities were created, because the government intentionally did that in order to make sure that we were separated and that we weren't equally protected under the law. And so when you look at, issues like police reform or prison reform and talk about even specifically just defunding the police, you have to really understand what that means and what it would signify, even just psychologically, if a city decided to defund the police. The way police funding is spent is not it's almost 90% spent at a municipal level, which is a local level, versus a state level, which means that it's actually mayors who are deciding how to spend their police funding dollars. How is it that in a white community, police budgets are nearly half or a third of what they are in Black and brown communities? It's because in white communities, mayors want to invest in improving the infrastructure of that community and giving people opportunities. And they feel like they don't need to police as much because they're building a community in a town that they think is beautiful and prosperous. In Black communities, the reason why police budgets are so high is because they want to keep the system that they've created over the past several centuries in place. That's why 80% of the budgets are spent on police in Black and brown communities. And so when we say defund, we're not saying the police need to go away, they need to be extinct. We're saying that budgets and the way that they're spent in Black and brown communities need to mirror the way that they're spent in white communities so that there is actual equity across state lines.
Sterling, your pops was a police officer, correct? So, expand upon that, just thinking about from, this whole, ripping apart what defunding the police means. What does that mean to you growing up in inner city Chicago as, having a dad as a police officer?
Yeah, man, it was tough. I'm glad he got out of that field, man. I'm glad, he retired and moved on. But it was tough, man, because I, grew up and I didn't see, certain situations that didn't been in certain encounters with the police, know how they move, on the wrong side of it. And I also seen how they can move, on the other side of it. Like, he was one of them who had some respect in the town because he helped guys get off us, like cases where he could have gave them, years, they could have been in there for a minute. He, listen, you don't need to do this, that, and the third, go out there, do something else, like help your family. He helped some guys, so he had some of that, under his belt. There was also other cops in the town that put on youth programs in the community that help kids, stay engaged and stay doing something instead of going out and running the streets. So I seen it on both sides, and me knowing, the history behind officers, I'm not, for the badge, I'm not, for what they represent, but I do have a certain degree of respect for some guys who, do wear the badge because of who they are as a person, not necessarily their job and what they do. So, it was kind of hard for me, and it put me in a tough situation. But at the end of the day, that was my pops. I got love and respect for him, but it just, it gave me that incentive to keep educating myself and keep figuring out what I can do to help change the narrative. And, that's pretty much, what I'm doing right now with my case in Milwaukee. We sitting down and we talking with, the Fire and Police Commission, and we talking with, the mayor, and we talking with the city attorney, and we trying to figure out how we can amend some of these policies, that lock up Black people, that, allow them to get, shot at and have the officers face no consequences. Like, it's just a lot of things that, need to be changed. And that's what, I'm doing, as well as, the Bucks and the coalition that, we got coming. But it's important for, guys and leaders who have that voice to use it and take advantage of it. And if we can sit down at a table with the state legislators and the mayors and everything, we need to do that. We need to sit down and have those talks, along with, some of the community leaders who have been pushing for this for the last, 10, 15 years. They know it, like they know the ins and outs. They have the education, because, at the end of the day, I started off playing basketball. I wasn't well educated in this world. And over the last couple of years, that's when I, been, reading more and researching more and learning more about it. So I know it to an extent. I still got a lot to do, but those people who've been on the front lines for years, like, that's what they serve, like, that's what they do. They know more about it. So we got to bring them to the table with these, politicians and with these legislators who make, the real decisions. And we got to, see how we can figure this out, man, because it can't keep going this direction. We can't keep, sitting back and, 5 minutes later, we see a video of another Black, guy getting killed, shot in the back, and the officer getting off because, bullets went through the wall instead of getting off, instead of, being, sentenced or whatever for actually killing a person. Like, we can't keep having it. So we got to, do our part, man. It's important.
Absolutely. And Chloe, I know you can speak to this, both, growing up on the south side of Chicago and your father being, permanently handicapped by the police and this, whatever this no knock warrant, right? Can you expand upon, you've made it, as an ex Googler, right? Or, in that family, you've made it your life passion, to dedicate, what you're building to this cause. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think, just the first thing that I would say based on what you've just shared is like just a note on no knock warrants, right? Because like a lot of the rhetoric being shared around Breonna Taylor's case is people are saying that because it wasn't explicit as what happened to Ahmaud Arbery or Jacob Blake, that she doesn't necessarily deserve, the same level of justice. And that's just completely not true. If you look at my dad's case, at the end of the day, the city settled with my family. So there is case law that does support, people like Breonna actually receiving justice. So that's the first thing, and we should of course continue to pursue justice for Breonna Taylor. The second thing that I would say is just, yeah, I mean, growing up and having to shuffle my dad back and forth from physical therapy to trial was very traumatizing. Having to watch him put on a bulletproof vest under his clothes before he would leave the house was even more traumatizing. To this day, my family and I have to watch him in pain all of the time because, again, he still has an actual bullet lodged in his spine from what happened to him almost 30 years ago. And so for me, it was always about staying focused and realizing that there were larger goals that I had for myself in life, and I just had to work really hard to get there. And so, I was always really focused in school. I got a full-time ride to Howard, and then I took several different internships throughout my time at Howard in order to get the job at Google.
And then, now with Community X and, just from what I'm hearing, with what you're building and Sterling's fight on the ground, I think that, there's a golden opportunity to kind of, scale this voice, right? This voice for activism and also, leading up to, voting, right?
Right.
I'm a young person, right? I'm nervous about voting, right? I don't know who to vote for. All this stuff that you're saying, that Sterling is saying, legislation, I'm not ready for that, right? What are some ideas that, for, the youth that are looking to kind of, cross the line and make that initiative to vote? Because there's a lot of people out there that don't believe. Like, what would be your call to action or your advice to them, right, to get them to understand, the power that they have to vote for a lot of these things that's happening in their community?
I mean, I would say locally, just do your research, man. Study, know who, is running and, know their history, know what they've done before, if they already been in office, see, the strides that they've made with their time being there, the guy that, or the person that's running against them, do your research on them, study, see what their policies are, see what their, what they want to do, what their campaign team is, trying to push for, and then go out there and make the best choice according to what you believe in. If you feel like their ideas and everything line up with yours morally and everything, like don't just go into it blindly because somebody telling you that you should go out there and vote or you should vote for this person. Like, do the research and, everything for yourself and then go out there and make that right decision.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Register to vote, vote early if you can. If you don't feel comfortable going out to the polls, understand how you can vote by mail. And, no matter what, just by November 3rd, make your voice heard, educate yourself exactly as Sterling just suggested. and, you know, after November 3rd, continue to hold all of these candidates accountable.
And then also, like, you know, what are some ideas? Like, how do, outside of voting, right? How do we root out these bad seeds, right? Because it's, yes, we're going to vote. Yes, we're going to defund the police, but there's still, you know, bad seeds. How do we root, you know, how do we root out the bad seeds?
Man, it's hard. There ain't even no, you know, solid answer for that, man, because it's so deeply rooted, man. It's in history, you know, like if you even if you look at they protected, you know, by, you know, the system and by, you know, the country. Even if you look at Rodney King's situation back then, 2 months later, you know, it was a bill coming out or an act coming out to protect the police then, and everybody in the world seen what happened to him. So it's tough, man. It's so deeply rooted, but we just got to keep, you know, chopping away at it, you know. And like I said before, man, educate ourselves. We got to strategically, you know, implement after we unite. You know, we got to come together and we got to stand strong, man. We got to have our leaders who have a voice and a platform continue to have those conversations, you know, with, and like I said before, the legislators and the mayors, whoever they can get in a room with, you know, have those conversations, try to change those policies, you know, have the people call in, you know, talk to the fire and police commissions, you know, do whatever we can do, but it's not going to happen, you know, overnight. It's not going to happen in the next year or two. It's going to be something that it's an ongoing fight that we got to, you know, keep chipping away at.
Yeah, I agree with that. And just like in a specific example, in California, Jackie Lacey is the current DA based in LA. We all thought Jackie Lacey was going to be a great thing for Black and Brown communities, and it turns out that she was the opposite. She's very tough on crime, and she's very easy on police officers. She's someone who refuses to hold people accountable for the brutality and for their extremism. There's a candidate running against her who has a platform that's very progressive and very promising for our communities. So I think zeroing in on campaigns like that, like Sterling said earlier, and understanding, you know, this is a very critical moment in your city where you can make a difference, do that.
I mean, and I think this is a great opportunity to just plug your platform, right? Because your platform kind of aligns with, you know, and educates people, you know, holistically on this vision. I mean, please, like, there are people out here watching. You're an entrepreneur. This is important. I think your platform is really important. Can you expand on just how they can find the platform and the things that they can do?
Yeah, so Community X is a mobile app. It's available on iOS and Android. And basically, the whole idea behind it is to unite people and to keep the movement going. We understand that there is so much information out there that's so hard to find. And then once you find it, it's really hard to understand. At the same time, there are a lot of people who are doing the work and can share that exact information with you in a really digestible and actionable way. And so what we're doing is we're bringing those people into a place where it makes it really easy to share action-oriented content that's focused on social justice issues, and mobilize people around those calls to action. We are also a Black-owned and Black-led company, which is extremely unique in Silicon Valley. Obviously, all of the major founders and CEOs of social media platforms are white, cisgender, male, Ivy League educated people. And so what we're building is really unique in that way, as well.
That's awesome. And Sterling, you were a part, you know, of the playoff boycott, and you had an integral voice in that. And I think after that, you know, there was, you know, a great relationship and partnership coming out of that with the NBA, the NBPA. Can you just talk about, you know, some of the things now that you're doing from that meeting to kind of get people out to, you know, motivate them and vote?
You know, the league, we started, you know, a coalition with the owners and the coaches and a few players. And, you know, a part of that on the board, and that's been the key thing that they've been pushing is voting. We've also tapping into the community as well, getting funds to the organizations and to the people who need it, who are actually who've been doing the legwork thus far and just need a little more push, need that extra little boost. And that's something that I'm happy to be a part of. And since that boycott, well, I ain't gonna say boycott, but since we stopped and didn't play that game against Orlando, it was a lot of conversations statewide in Wisconsin that we became a part of. We sat down, we talked with a lot of people who changed things in the state of Wisconsin. The Senate, the legislature. We talked to the governor. We talked to a lot of people. We still on those talks and on those calls, still trying to get people to just hear us and actually implement things that need to be done. And that's another one. In my foundation, we've partnered with a few people. BMOA, we just had a back to school supply drive in the community where we gave away school supplies and other things, Black Afrocentric books. We still involved in the community and giving life back to the community. And just a few things that we're trying to touch on as far as finances. That's important for us. For the Black community, just to have that financial literacy, so we can know how to manage things and we can know how to, just make things a little bit easier for ourselves. So we're not always, stressing about things. And, that leads to other unhealthy, habits and thoughts. And, mental health is one of them. And that's something that, my foundation is attacking. Mental health is extremely, it's underrated, like it's overlooked in the Black community. And that's something that we have to address. It's, I'm involved in a lot. And, it's, like I said before, it's not gonna happen overnight. It's a fight that we got to keep fighting, and all hands on deck. We need everybody that we can to become involved in your community, or if you want to reach out to whoever, myself or Chloe. It's time for us to get involved and not just sit on the sidelines and keep watching.
I agree. I think that one, there's power in this discussion, right? There's power between both of your platforms. I do want to ask this question, watching the debate, right? And hearing both sides just speak to racism's, systemic racism, you know what I mean? Institutional racism, right? And, with COVID and all that's happening, this election seems like it's going to be the most important and the most pivotal, right? With all that said, do you feel that there is going to be a fear, right? With 5 weeks out, what are we doing to, protect or fund the people to get people out, especially with, COVID and now with all of the, kind of racist and white supremacist banter that we've been hearing lately?
I would say that it's gonna be a fit for some people because it's like we choosing between the good of two evils in some people's eyes. Like Chloe said before, Trump, he is who he is, and he got his view on certain things, and Biden, his history speaks for itself. So it's like people trying to figure out who really to go choose. But at the end of the day, it's a lot of like what the NBA is doing, pushing for, to open all facilities to go vote and everything. Like that's huge in itself, that the teams have huge influence in the communities, in the states, and the towns that they're in. And, people going to go out and vote, just off the strength of that. But, man, it's tough, man. It is going to be, pivotal. But, if we keep doing what we got to do for ourselves, it's going to offset some of the stuff that is unknown, with the elections. We don't really know how, when they get in office, which way they're going to go. They can tell us this, that, and the third now, but then, act different, so we just got to keep doing what we can do for ourselves, keep educating ourselves, and keep, being there for each other and the community.
Absolutely. Chloe, 5 weeks out, you're working with the Florida Rights Restoration Collective, right? Can you speak on that and like the work that you're doing to help them and amplify their platform uh, through Community X?
Yeah, I mean, I think if so, a couple of things. Like, one, the good news about this election is that almost 100,000 people have already voted. So that's great. Voter registration rates are at an all-time high. That's another really good thing. Again, if you don't want to go to the polls to vote, you can mail in your ballot. That's another great thing. I think, in addition to these efforts, one of the other things that we've had to work on this year is making sure that we're actually restoring people's right to vote, because they're in a country of a population of 330 million or something. There are millions of people in this country who should be able to vote, but the government took their voting rights away. And so that is, the proposition that Florida just passed is a really good example of that. 1.5 million people who are out on parole are now able to vote. Governor Newsom just did something similar in California. And if you think about, elections, even the last presidential election, and how it always comes down to, we're counting the last votes in one state, and it's this narrow percentage, and we're all on the edge of our seats, really not sure what, is going to happen. The idea of releasing 1.5 million people in one state, in the state of Florida,
Right.
Black and brown people who can now vote, that makes a huge difference. So that's one of the things that we're doing, and it's because this is part of the systemic dismantling that needs to be done in order to lead to equity and lead to freedom.
Amazing. Amazing. And then Sterling, talk about some of the stuff that we can do towards creating more so positive solutions in the community to get people out, to vote. You guys are doing great work with opening up the arenas, right? With and partnering with the NBA. But talk about some more of the local stuff that the NBPA is doing just with the players and players like yourself.
Yeah, just joining forces with different organizations that have mainly had that as their focus. Getting out and being amongst the people. That's what is that's what we hang our hat on a lot, because people like to see us around. They like to be well next to us. They like to actually see us and have that conversation, have that dialogue with us. And it influences them to go out there and vote. And as we are out there amongst the people, we got to continue to tell them to educate themselves, not just vote because somebody says vote. It's important, and that we are seen. And that's going to draw a lot of people. Like in the state of Wisconsin, they said that they don't want the Bucks or the Brewers near the voting facilities, arenas, because they don't want us to influence the people that's coming to vote. So it's like we just got to be involved. We just got to be there, present, and continue to go out to these the Black and brown communities, and get them to understand that it's bigger than it's more that needs to be done. Instead of just sitting back and going about our lives. Like we got a more powerful message that we got to continue to fight towards.
And if I could just say one thing,
Yeah.
I am the founder of a tech company, but I do believe that nonprofit on the ground work could not be more important than it is right now. Technology is powerful, but there's nothing more powerful than human connection. There's nothing more powerful than someone like Sterling going into Milwaukee or Chicago, or someone like you, Baron, going out into LA and being elbow to elbow with people, helping them understand why it's so important for them to go vote and for them to fight for their rights. And that those interactions are actually going to have way more impact than anything we could ever do digitally. So I just, that work is so incredibly important and could not be understated.
Yeah, and I think to your point, that mixed with, you know, the technology, right? Mixed with the platform that Sterling and I have from a social media perspective, I think information, right? Information can be shared a lot quicker, right? And so the opportunity for, you know, us as this next generation to really start thinking about, you know, our platforms, talk about, you know, social media and how digital media plays a huge role in not only this election, but, you know, how we start to, you know, spread it, you know, the information that we want to.
Yeah, we got to attack from all angles, man. We can't leave none out for sure.
Real talk. Big facts.
Yeah.
But it, you know, to me, it's like, you know, what you're building with Community X, right? You know, and kind of just drilling into, you know, there is a lot of nonprofit work, right, that's happening on the ground level, right? And you know, it's really about finding it too, right? So speak to the importance of, you know, let's call it social justice technology,
Right.
right? And just, you know, what you're doing on that aspect, you
Right.
know, from a voting standpoint,
And I
especially with the youth.
Yeah, and I think, you know, also if we're zeroing in on like tech specifically, what social justice technology means in Silicon Valley. If you look at Facebook, for instance, and the role that they played in the last presidential election with fake news and misinformation and mobilizing people to vote in the wrong way based on those things. What does it mean to create the antithesis to that? What does it mean to build with purpose? What does it mean to code with intention? What does it mean to truly protect people's data and protect their livelihood? In the protests over the summer, we saw that the FBI was actually using data from Facebook and Instagram to target specific people and show up on their doorstep or grab them from a rally. And so, yes, like leveraging, you know, what we do to create that safe space and to create a reliable, you know, space is really important.
Amazing. Amazing. I'm motivated. Dismantling inequality and the push for prison reform. You know, as we start to close here, one with Business Inside the Game, you know, there's a lot of activists, entrepreneurs, young people, and first time voters. You know, just share some words of encouragement to our audience and the people out there about, you know, their right to vote and what that means.
You go ahead, Chloe.
You know, I again would just say that actually, like, if you're a first time voter in this election, how exciting is that? Like, you have the opportunity to make an impact in the most important election in human history. And honestly, nothing could be more exciting than that. And I, you know, have full faith in, you know, millennials, but also Gen Z, those within Gen Z who are of voting age. I have full faith that they will come out and mobilize to the polls. They are the ones who have really been spearheading all of the protests that we've seen, not only from, you know, police and prison reform, but also to climate action and gender rights. And so I'm really confident that they're excited to go out and vote. And, you know, I'm excited. I can't wait to vote.
Yeah, I mean, you know, my biggest message, and you know, I'm always preaching whenever I get a platform is, you know, educate. You know, educate, educate, educate. We got to educate ourselves on, you know, our history and what we've been through in order to know what we're dealing with now, in order to know what we got to do in the future. You know, it's important. You know, we got to educate ourselves on, you know, all levels. You know, whether it's finance, whether it's politics, whether it's you know, criminal justice and police brutality, the history of that. You know, we just got to continue to educate ourselves and, you know, go out there, you know, make that, you know, right decision. Go out there and vote based on, you know, the core beliefs that you have and which candidate you feel like, you know, align them. And, you know, stay involved in the community as well. You know, it's not just about a vote because once, like you said, BD before, once the voting is over with, what's next? Like, you got to, you know, we got to act, we got to do things after this voting, you know, is done. After this voting process is done for the next 4 years, we got to do something, you know. So we,
Absolutely.
continue to stay involved in the community, continue, to give back, the people who are in the position, us leaders, we got to continue to touch the youth because they are the future. We got to continue to, uplift them and encourage them and give them hope, and push their dreams. We got to continue to do that. It's important.
Yeah, I am for one am inspired by this conversation because, the theme was dismantling inequality and the push for prison reform, right? And as we talked about, voting and using technology and getting our hands dirty and rubbing shoulder to shoulder, but also it was, doing a deep dive on, local and hyper local, right? And bills, right? And for me, the beauty I get out of this, conversation is to kind of recap and, learn something different. And, for me, I think the opportunity to, you know, there is no reason not to learn, right? Take the power that you have, right? And use your right to vote. Take the power that you have in your community and use that right to make your community a better place. And I want to thank you both for being a part of this, this town hall, as we call it, in our partnership with the MBPA. Sterling, thank you for coming. Chloe, thank you for coming. And one, before we get out of here, we always like to ask, what is your business inside the game? Meaning, what do you bring to the court that you bring to off the court? What do you use to transition from a Google to an entrepreneur? What is your core DNA? So Sterling, I start with you. What is your business inside the game and something that you can share with our entrepreneurs and people out there?
Man, just stay hungry, stay keep that ambition, keep that drive, and that's what I bring. When I'm on it off the court, when I'm on the court, I'm in you. I'm gonna be you on the defensive end. I'm gonna get in you. I'm gonna force you, to do things that you're not used to doing. I'm gonna stay locked in. I'm gonna go hard 100% of the time. You know what I'm saying? And I'm doing that off the court as well. I'm involved in a few different, committees, boards. I got a foundation. I done tapped into real estate. I done tapped into all type of things, stocks and everything. So I'm staying, I'm keeping my, foot on people's throats, man, on and off the court.
Absolutely. I love that.
Yeah, for me, no matter where I am or what I'm doing, I always picture this image of my grandmother who, for the majority of her life, was a single Black mother, and pulled resources that weren't there together in order to keep her son out of prison over a course of almost 10 years against one of the biggest, most corrupt cities in this country, which is Chicago. And so that her energy and her effort and her dedication in making sure that her son received justice in a country where that happens not most of the time is what keeps me going.
Love that. I love that. One, thank you both for doing this. Thank you to the MBPA on behalf of Business Inside the Game. I would like to say, I'm humbled, right? I feel like the more we talk about it, the more we learn, the more we teach, the more we motivate, right? The more we champion the right people, the better the opportunity. And what better opportunity than now for us to dismantle inequality, for us to push for prison reform, right? For us to, to push for, funding and the beautification of our neighborhoods. All that is in, not just the vote between what we saw in the debate, but that is, these are the things that's going to be on these ballots and these local ballots that's going to affect the way we want to live. And we deserve the right to live, in a place where we feel free, in a neighborhood where we can walk around. And so, one, I want to thank you for just kind of ripping apart our theme and really dissecting prison reform and how we go out and vote. So thank you all, everyone out there. Appreciate you for tuning in. and hope to see you next week on our town hall as we talk about discussing equal access to healthcare, the importance, right? And, you know, a lot like this conversation is going to be important for us to get out to vote so we have, you know, the resources that we need that are necessary. So once again, thank you, Chloe. Thank you, Sterling. Thank you, MBPA. Thanks a lot. Appreciate you guys.
So salute, man. Appreciate you, man.
All right.